All right, guys, today's video is going to be on getting DaVinci Resolve working in an LXC container. So now if you're coming from my Docker container, which I still need to make an updated one, just because some things have changed. So look, okay, for those of you who know, right, the Docker container, as cool as it is, the hardest thing that I've always dealt with has been the deactivation piece. So like it's not supposed to the best of my understanding from like when I talk with DaVinci Resolve support. But of course, like it's not really that deep of discussion because, you know, obviously what we're doing isn't officially supported by them to begin with. But like, you know, like you get the program, the studio working on in Ubuntu, but Ubuntu's in a Docker container and all that's fine and dandy. And then for whatever reason, if you leave that container like down for X amount of time, for whatever strange reason, Resolve then like is like deactivated. And for the life I've tried, I can't really figure out how or why. And I think in my next attempt, what I'm gonna try and do is probably just like see if maybe I can mount the the place where like the files are actually physically like stored at when you installed Resolve, so like the /opt directory. But like I say, you know, that stuff we're going to go into the Docker container. But like I said, with all those issues, this is why we're moved to LXC. And once I was able to get the LXC officially working, I was like, oh my gosh, bro, I can't believe that we're actually here. So in this one, I'm going to walk through the entire LXC setup. I really should maybe make another one to just for dedicate for LXC itself, because it's like really cool as far as like, you know, because it's like Docker but better. In most cases it is a little bit more hands-on because there's a lot of more technical stuff to it, but it works so well, and as of right now I have not had any issues keeping Resolve activated. Once I activate it, you know, it stays activated whether I bring the container down, leave it down for a while, bring it back up. As of now, right, you know, I only recently got this working like a week and a half ago, right, and it's usually like a week-ish that I need the Docker container to be off, that when I start it back on, for whatever reason, Resolve saying it's not activated, give or take. So you know, I'll report back in the comment section, or you know, the video description section if you know there is still an activation issue. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and install the LXC container. I'm doing this on my other server here, which would be perfect because there are going to be some things I'm going to want you guys to see. If there was ever a thing I wish I would complain about with Unraid, they need to change this goddamn button. You know, difference between close and done on this, because like it's like you don't know. Like you just see a button there that lets you close the window you think it's done, but you don't want to do it when it's done, or close you want to do when it's done. But anyway, all right, so we got this installed. So let's go ahead and head on over to the settings here. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and enable it, but I'm also going to change the directory that I usually save this at. So for me, I usually just save this in the same drive that I have my Docker containers on as well. So for me, that's going to be Docker, and come on, get out my way. Or maybe I could just type from, no, I can't, no, or can I type but it just won't show me? Okay, yes, I can type, but it just won't show you. Oh, beautiful. Just beautiful, right? All right, so here we go. Okay, so I'm throwing this on the same drive I use for my Docker containers because it's an SSD. Everything else I'm keeping pretty much default. There's not really anything I set up. I haven't really explored much of anything else yet, but you know, that's that. So we're just gonna go ahead and enable it. Please make sure it matches. Oh, that's right. It also needs a /. So let's do that. Boom. And okay, let's go ahead and hit apply. Right. So yes, wherever you're going to put it at, make sure it ends in a /, because I guess that's just a thing. But okay, cool. It's done. And you're going to see up here at the top, LXC pops up. So let's go ahead and click into here. So now we are still going to use Ubuntu. I tried this a long time ago with Rocky Linux, but since I've never gotten it to work with Rocky Linux naturally, by naturally I mean like in a VM machine and stuff, even on a VM machine, just because there's just some extra issues I did not feel like dealing with, because I've never used a Rocky Linux before. Who uses Rocky Linux? All right, we still decided to just go ahead and just use Ubuntu. So let's go ahead, add our Ubuntu container here. All right, so I am going to call this one, like, so, you can call it whatever you want. Description, I'm just going to call it just something I want just for, tidy purposes, right? Ubuntu LXC container using mostly for DaVinci. Now, here we go. So now we're going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and select Ubuntu. The latest Ubuntu, I believe right now, is questing. I guess his MAC address is just like auto-generated start after creation. So we're going to actually uncheck that just because we're going to go ahead and get some mounts out the way while we're at it. So yep, so that's cool, right? And please match the requested format. Excuse me, what do you mean by requested format? Is it, I know it's pointing at the container description. It's supposed to be text. What format do you need for text? Are you there's no way. There's no way. Bro, I don't. But anyway, we're going to wait now for this to finish and we're going to come back. I need something to like get my mind off of this. All right. Took it a couple of minutes, but it finally finished. All right. So there we go. Right now we got it all up and running. Like I said, we didn't have an auto start, and that's just because we're going to go ahead and handle some mount configs. So now, like, immediately the real main difference, well, I mean, there's a huge difference between Docker and LXC. They're like in the same realm, but they're actually like very different in like how they operate. LXC brings you like a lot closer to like the VM of an OS, like as far as like running a Linux operating system, than Docker would. While still sort of kind of like, it's still a container. It's like the best like low level way I can like explain it to you with my limited understanding, right? Because I don't want to portray like, I'm like a super expert on it. But all right, so this right here is the config file for the LXC container. As you can see here, this is like how it, it specifies specific things. The most important thing we're going to do is going to be handling mount points. So this is where we're going to feed it things like the your host Nvidia files, as well as access to other stuff to get like Fuse working and whatnot. So what we're going to do now is, let's go ahead, let me grab my block of code here. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that here, right? And we're going to go ahead and we're going to walk through it a little bit, okay? So first and foremost, so here's the Fuse support stuff, right? Because, it is going to need access to like your host's Fuse directory in order to get Fuse working. And what this is like, so when you click on like .run files, or you try to like, mount images, this would actually allow it to work. And then of course, like allowing the group device access, which I'll be truly honest with you, because the C group thing is like a whole nother world. I'm still trying to learn. So it took me a bit of like digging just to figure this out. But, it turned out to be this is how I got it working. The Nvidia stuff is going to be, a little different for you. First and foremost, so this is actually from my other server, because I actually don't have this many. I think I only have 3 on this particular one. But you want to mount, first thing you want to do is you want to mount your Nvidia GPUs, or AMD if you're using AMD ones. Of course, like I said, this is made mostly for the Nvidia ones. You want to go ahead and you want to mount those GPUs directly, okay? So obviously, if you only have one, right, then this is the only one you need. And then of course you could just duplicate it and, change the points to 1 and 2 for every card that you have. And then of course I said AMD, just check the dev directory and then look for what the actual names are, right? And you make your changes accordingly. Now there's also other stuff in that dev directory that we also need for Nvidia to actually act right. So like these Nvidia caps, the UVM, I know is like a big one. But I was like, let me just grab like, everything that I could see that seemed like I should ask. So I did that. And then of course, then you had these. Now this is the one where they could be, you might have some issues with with your particular setup when you do this. Try this and see if it works. And then if it doesn't work, there is, I'm a double check. I might throw it in the comment section, but like there is a way to like confirm what what the C group for your Nvidia stuff is, because it could potentially be different as you just different newer cards or whatever. So just be a little bit cautious about this. I wish I had the command on hand for finding it, but I don't, so I'm gonna just throw it in the description when I sit there and have to research. I forgot what page I found it on, to be quite honest with you. But that's just the one thing I just want to point out about that. This should work. I know these two for sure, or maybe it's the first and last one for sure work, and maybe the 238 was the one that was unique for me. I don't know. But yeah, so that's all you need there. And then of course the user space. Now here's what's so interesting about this, okay? So what we did was we mounted Nvidia SMI into the containers bin directory directly. Ooh, that is a tongue twister. And so that way it has access to Nvidia SMI without an issue. And then this is the part here where we're about to do something extra. Now look, I tried a lot of different ways and stuff, and this was really the one that seemed like the most efficient, sane way to do this. So you are going to have to, and I can't promise you how this works in the future, you are going to have to make a copy of the Nvidia files on your server into another folder on your server, and then you're going to want to mount that into the container. Okay, so as you can see here, right, I have my Nvidia files, right? This is because I'm just grabbing my configuration from my other server, because I still have to do this on this one, so I'm gonna walk you through that in a second. But as you can see here, this is the folder that I had copied the Nvidia files into, and then what I did was I then mounted all the contents of that folder into this lib64 folder, and then there is an extra thing we're going to need to do, because it's still not going to be naturally seen inside the container without an additional code thing. We'll get into that too. But yeah, so this you certainly are going to need. And where is the save button at? I thought, is there not a save button? Let me just copy this real fast, just in case. I wonder where let me try that again. No, where the, you know what? No, don't ask. Don't ask. Don't ask. I don't know why. This is why I make these videos, right? Because maybe I'm hoping it's not just, maybe it is just me. Then I'm just the one that's cursed with having like these like crazy issues, bro. Like it's not like it was even. Never mind. You know what? Never mind. All right, cool. So we're done there. Okay, so now let's actually go ahead and copy those Nvidia files. Now, like I said, the only thing you're just going to need to change is if you're going to like store that in a different different folder or location or whatever. But like I said, to keep it simple, I just I had made another folder again on the Docker SSD that I want to keep the stuff, since it's going to use it with, if not Docker, with LXC container stuff. It seemed like the best place to put it, not on like the catch file or whatever. But like I said, it's up to you, like where it is you're going to want to put that at. So let me go ahead now, and so all we're going to do is I'm going to show you. All right, so what we're doing here is then using rsync, right? Rsync is an advanced version of CP, copy. So what we're doing is we're using rsync to copy files. So I'll explain which one of these flags does, right? So -AV, so the -A is like archival, I believe stands for like archival, which just means that it tries to preserve as much information about the file as it can, as far as like permissions, ownerships, all that different kinds of stuff. V is for verbose output. I wanted to say is like how you pronounce that. And that's just so that it actually shows you all the files it's copying, progress and stuff like that, which is like really nice. --delete, I had to look it up just to make sure that I wasn't crazy. And so the way what this works is that this basically forces the directory that you're copying to mirror to mirror the output of the like source files, right? So the source location, meaning that like if you run this, after it copies all of the files that you included the copy, if there's any extra files in the destination that didn't exist in the original source that you're copying to, then it's going to automatically delete those. And we're doing this because, like I say, you know, this is in the Nvidia stuff, right? Nvidia might add files, Nvidia might take away files, right? So that's why we did this, because you are probably going to need to run this every time you update the Nvidia drivers, FYI. So I mean, it's a server, so I wouldn't personally update too often, but you know, I'm just letting you know. And then lastly, the prune empty dars just means that if for whatever reason there's a folder that's being copied to your destination that's empty, it's just going to automatically omit that. So you're not going to just have just a bunch of empty folders, just in case that's the thing. Now the dash include is like the rules for what it is you want to copy. So instead of me sitting there copying everything in that directory, I might actually just create a rule system where I have things I want to include and things I want to exclude, so that's why, you know, as you can see here, we included all lib cuda, the lib Nvidia, and the lib NV files, and then, you know, the wildcards. Okay. And then of course exclude, with being just a wildcard, means it would exclude everything else. And then now lastly, then we have this, this is the directory on the Unraid host, right? That actually contains the Nvidia, you know, when you install an Nvidia drivers, this is where it installs that, those files at. And then the destination of where we want those files copied to. And then, you know, in case anybody's wondering, well, I mean, if you don't know, right, this, space backward slash thing just lets the, the console know that you just want to make, you know, you want the rest of the command to flow through in a new line. So that's just what this is. You could have all this all in one. Well, not these two in particular, without like I guess a double and sign in between. But you could literally have like everything else though in one line and it would work just the same. But you know, that's what I do here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. As you can see it's copying, and there you go, right? You see sent, receive, blah, 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 all good and dandy. So now those files are there. So that's nice. All right. So after we had sat there and we created the files, right? So now what we're going to do, let me just close this real quick so I don't confuse myself. All right. So after we had did the copy, now let's go ahead and start the container. Give that a second. Cool, it started. So now I'm going to go ahead and let me jump into the terminal on here. All right, cool, right? So now here we are into our broke version of Ubuntu, right? Because this is supposed to be the headless, don't have nothing version of Ubuntu, right? That's, I guess, customary for server installs, I guess. And then then from there you install everything that you're going to need. All right, so first thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and I'm going to grab my first batch of code here, which is this. All right, so first we're going to do is, you know, we're going to do an app.update. Then we're going to upgrade, you know, any packages that it has that can be upgraded, which it should be almost none. And then we're going to install like some basic stuff that I normally use. This will be interesting to see if sudo works, because I don't remember if sudo's already comes with Ubuntu or not. Well, I guess we'll find out. But you know, Vim is the, you know, your basic editor. Curl and CA certificates, right? That's just, well, curl especially, you know, your basic network stuff. CA certificates, you know, same, you know, related with like the whole HTTPS stuff and whatnot. Now, if you are adept enough with your Linux OSs that you know what replacement packages you want to use for these particular ones, the XFCE, and the XRDP, which I'll talk about that in a second, right? Then please, you know, use those. Just know you'll have to translate their setup to like how you are familiar with, right? But these ones, so these two here, this is for the UI, okay? So this is what we use for our desktop user interface that we're going to get up and running installed on this Linux container. dbus X11, I'll be honest with you, I forgot what I needed this for, but it was necessary and needed, so like it's included. XRDP as well as the xorg version, right? So that is the remote desktop protocol. Okay, so like, you know, Microsoft remote desktop using the what is it, this oh yeah, of course, you know, it would be nice if come on, if I could show you, right? But being able to actually use the remote desktop to connect to the container, that's what we used for, right? There's other things you could do. You could use like Tiger VNC and all stuff. If you know how to set those up, by all means. I used Tiger VNC before, but I just like to stick with the stuff that I already have on my computer. So if I could just use the Microsoft protocols, that's what I use. That leads me into this one right here. So CFIS utils and SMB client, right? That's the stuff for mounting SMB shares. Okay. The CFIS utils one specifically is I want to say it was either that one or the SMB client one. No, I think it was the utils one, right? That lets you like do some debugging stuff, which is why I also included it. But yeah, right. So you just need these tools. And then DNS utils, that's troubleshooting packages, right? And then of course, systemd resolve, that's network, that's DNS stuff. The other resolve, right, there's more DNS stuff, right? You should definitely install those. And then the squash FS tools, which is the stuff that typically needs in order to actually mount like the I guess the Linux images or .run files, right? So cool. So that's what we did there. Let's see if sudo. Okay, so sudo already is there, so you probably don't need that. But okay, cool. So it is still gonna update, so that's cool. And we'll come back when it's done. All right, so now that is done, right? Like I said, that's going to take a bit because it's going to install quite a bunch of stuff. So now what we're going to do is we're going to enable systemd, the system resolve D, right? And then we are going to then create a user. Like I said, now this part right here, obviously you're going to want to make I don't know why it has this gray box here, but you know, obviously you call it whatever you want, but we're just going to make sure we enable that. So like the DNS resolve thing is acting proper. And then of course we got the username. So, all right. So this is where I'm making the password for my user. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and, type in the password and, retype it, right? So then after that, we'll do that. Now it's going to want you to, enter the information for this new user. So I'm going to go ahead and knock that out real quick. All right. And then, after you enter the information, right, because it's going to ask you for your full name, work number, home number, other, right? Then give you a confirmation if it's correct. Then you just say yes and then cool. So I hit the clear command after I did that. So that way, so that's why my console is like blank right now. All right, cool. Right. So at this point, we got, we got a user, right? We made our own user, right? We're still going to be en route for a lot of this until we like log into the desktop. But, we got our like packages that we need to get installed, or at least most of them, right? So what we're going to do now is obviously that user I'm making as like an admin user. So I'm going to add that user to the group sudo, right? So it has access to the sudo command, as you can see here, right? So sudo user mod, add to group, the sudo group, and then my username, right? And then I'm gonna check the ID in groups that like my user is, right? So that's my UID right there, right? Group ID, right? And then here's the groups, which is me. Oh, and excuse me. And group sudo users, blah blah blah, right? And then yeah, see I'm a sudo user. Cool. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and get this. We're going to get the desktop GUI up and going, and then we're going to get XRDP up and going. Okay. So this is where we are going to start the stuff here. Okay. So first and foremost, right? Start XFCE4, right? You're gonna basically kind of you're gonna tee that into this .session file, and that's like what you need for like the desktop, and then of course you'll change that ownership to the user that you're going to be using to sign into. Okay, well, I mean, obviously, the user, since we're putting that in that directory, right? So, you do that. And then I heard that this was needed for like some SSL issues that sometimes like happen about. So we added a user XRDP and SSL cert. And then after that, then we enable the remote desktop, and then we restarted it just to make sure everything was up and running. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, cool. Right. So there you go. So all that looks like it's good now. So now what we're going to do, now we're going to run this just to confirm that everything's all good. So ss dash, oh, I was call it a tulip, but you know, with these flags there, and then we're going to grep for like, you know, the standard port that, you know, is Microsoft's remote desktop protocol uses, right? So 3389. And then of course, then we're going to, you know, if we don't see that, that's what this is for here, which is the or we would do a sudo system status XRDP, right? Where this would actually put out if this would actually put out like information about the actual application. Right. And as we can see here, we do see it's running, right? So this was good. So that's why I didn't it didn't like, you know, run this part. And so now we can actually go ahead and sign in. So what I'm going to do now is, now I haven't set up the host name, I haven't set up the host name quite yet for this. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and target the IP address for right now. But, you know, what I would do is, you know, I would go on my router, especially, and then just check and see, because it might already have this particular name, but like I have like a few routers in between, like the way my stuff is set up, so this wouldn't have even worked anyway unless like I added it entry into like the downstream router. So that's why I'm not even going to like attempt it right now. So let's just go ahead, and that's not the code, or sorry, IP address. Let's do 192.168, right? You know, the IP address of the container, and then we're going to go ahead and hit connect. And as you can see, boom, right? And see there, yeah, see, so there's that's what the actual host name is, which, you know, we're going to change our end when we get a chance. But okay, so let me go ahead and bring this over here. Good God, that is tiny. I am very sorry, guys. I might try to fix that in a second. Let me just see. Yeah, I'm gonna try and fix. I'll try and fix that later then. So let's just we'll do the rest in the container for right now. I'm sorry, in the root terminal for right now. So and now we're going to move on to SMB. Okay. So first thing you are going to want to do, okay, is if you already have your SMB share already working, like, so you can skip this section if you don't use SMB, you use something else like the Linux equivalent, which I forgot what the name was. But first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to use SMB client, and you're going to want to test and see if you know, everything is working as of right now for this to work, right? So this is why we did the DNS stuff ahead of time, because, you know, like I said, I like to use everything in host names. I hate like the IP addresses. So, you know, we need to make sure that's working in order to make sure that when we use host names, things resolve properly. So that's why, you know, I have this -L and then the name of my my server, and then, you know, the user, we're going to use this one, and this is what we're going to use to confirm it's working. And there it goes. You see, it says that connection to be not found, which is problematic. All right, I actually figured it out. I forgot one more important part. So let me go ahead and paste this in here. All right. So after we had enabled the DNS resolve thing, there was still an extra thing we needed to do. Now this was more of a personal choice on how I went about this, because what we're going to do is we're going to then force the container to make sure that the only like DNS resolving thing that it tries to seek will be the router, which for me, my router is, you know, at this particular IP address. So of course you're going to need to adjust for your own, which I throw in there. And again, guys, like, this part you don't have to do if you want to do IP addresses, right? Me, like I said, I gotta have the DNS name. So I did have to do this. But anyway, so as you see here, right, we make the we made the directory, right, which is going to be this resolved config.d folder here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to t into this file, right, this file that we're going to create, the following, right, which we, you know, this is the resolve, which you know, the DNS resolver, right, is what this is for. Then we give it the IP address, right? I don't want it fall backing on anything, so that's why I leave that blank. And then of course, then, you know, resolve like single labels, which I believe just means like you know, like the actual name without like an ending, like a .lan or something. I don't use like any of those in my network, so that's why, you know, this was needed. And then end the file, which is how like it stops, I guess, like entering text, you know, when you do this like type of thing. And that's why I just did this last here. This last part, this echo, that just so I know that, okay, yeah, so you know, it had stopped adding the text into that file, and you know, we're out. So let's go ahead and do that. Cool, done DNS. All right. So now what we're going to do is I might have to restart it. Okay, yeah, I was like, you definitely had to restart it, right? So, you know, so then we ran, you know, systemctl restart, you know, the resolver, and then once I did it, boom, right, then it actually worked. So I'll be sure that in the description, at least that the that part where I added the config file is done first before we even got to enabling the resolve, so that we don't have to go through this. But if you do end up going through this, right, you see exactly how we just did it, right, because we just needed to add that config file and then restart it. Anyway, so now we're able to continue, right? So remember, the whole point when we was doing this was just to make sure that everything's working. See, this is why we always do the checks, right? Never assume anything is just blindly working, without doing like some quick checks whenever possible. So, all right, so we see that, you know, obviously it is working. So now what I am going to do is we are going to make our credentials file. Okay, so you know, you could put the credentials like raw, I guess, into like the mount points. So I wouldn't do that. Don't do that. All right, what we're going to do instead is we are going to make a credentials file that is going to have the username and password in it, and like work group if you do use that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a directory called Samba and etc. I'm sorry because I'm kind of sick, but you know, in the Samba, you know, call it Samba, and then we are going to create a file called credentials in said folder. All right, cool. And so now what we're going to do is we are going to make a username and password. Let me show you guys what that looks like. All right, so as you see, it's going to be just simply these 3 entries. Domain is optional if you don't use it, but you know, username equals then the username that you're going to use, then of course the password, and then of course you can add a domain if you're going to add it. You know, you put that in there, then we're going to hit the escape button, right? We're going to do a write at, you know, WQ, which is for writing and then quitting. All right, cool. So after you had created that credential file, all right, so next thing we're going to do is we are going to lock it down, and then we are going to do a few more folder creations, and then we're going to make another file. So here, so you know, we did sudo chmod 600, right? So that basically like locks that file down, so it's only accessible by like the user, which in this case would be root anyway. And then you know, then we're going to make a directory. So now this is the part where we're going to create the folder that we want to mount our stuff to, right? So now of course this is going to be totally up to you. That's what I'm gonna write in the description. Okay, I could have done a -p and just gone straight to like just making this, but then after that, then we are going to V into FSTAB, which is how we are going to where we're going to enter the mount command, right? So lock down the credentials file, make the folder that you're going to want to mount this particular like SMB share to, right? You're gonna have to do this for each SMB share that you're gonna like add to, so just keep that in mind, right? You know, new folder for whatever, and then FSTAB is where we're going to put the mount command into. So let's go ahead and do that. So there we go. So unconfigured FSTAB for base system. So let me move that down. Okay, so now this is what I am going to do here. So let me show you what I had used. So I'm going to paste this. All right. So first and foremost, right? So this is going to be, it starts off with your server's like, you know, share name. Okay. So server, then the share name of, you know, whatever like particular share that you're sharing. Okay. Then you're going to do the location on the container that you're going to mount this folder into. Right, which as you can see it, because you know I try to keep my stuff organized a certain way. So I got remotes, right, server name, and then like the particular, you know, SMB that I'm mounting, right, because I have a bunch of different folders I use for different things. Okay, then you know, then we have this here, CIFS credentials, right? As you can see, this is pointing to that credentials file that we had. we're going to go to the credentials file that we sat there and did. Now that version file, that version like entry that you saw me just remove, it's like highly suggested that you put that in there, and like you specify 3.0, 3.1 or whatever. I because I do a little bit of debugging stuff, so I try to like I just remove it so that way I could just like see some negotiation stuff whenever I'm like debugging to see if like maybe my server like stopped naturally giving out, starting off 3.1, because the servers will naturally start 3.1 and negotiate down depending on capabilities. So that's the only reason why I remove that. You probably would want to keep that, but I'm just I do stuff. And then of course like the user ID and then the group ID of like the the user that's going to be using this share, so that way you don't have any issues with permissions and stuff, like whenever you're creating files or whatnot. This alias char character thing, it's like for like text formatting. It's like some it's been a minute since I dug through like these last three parts here. The net dev, I believe the net dev waits for the network to be up before it tries it, so that it doesn't just go straight into failure if the network isn't up yet. No fail would actually keep your operating system from crashing if you try to mount this, because this is going to try to mount on boot like as soon as the container is coming up, and it might actually like literally like hoe your entire system if the mounting thing fails. So you're going to definitely want the no fail part. And then then the device time, I believe this is like how long it waits for like a response. I don't remember if that's just from like internally or from the network or something like that. I just know I needed these in order to get it to like not stay hung. And then I have no idea what these zeros are. I couldn't tell you, but they were needed. So so that's that. So we're going to go ahead and let us write and quit. And yes, I normally don't just like sit there and be like, we got to figure out, we probably don't need to figure out what this is. I'm just like, I remember like looking them up, and it was just something stupid, nothing crazy. And so I was just like, all right, whatever. All right. So we're going to write and quit that. So cool. Now here's the nice part. You can immediately test this out. And the way you test this out is you can do a sudo mount -a, right? Because remember, like editing the FSTAB is how you automate the remote mounting. Okay, so just so we're clear, right? If I was the ls /mount/ remote production, right? Obviously, there's nothing in there. So now when I do sudo mount -a, which is how we get the FSTAB thing to like go ahead and trigger itself. And let's see. And oh yeah, because I had edited the FSTAB and I forgot to actually do a reload. So I wonder if it still worked though. Okay, yeah, it did still work, so that's fine, right? Yeah, whenever it boots or whatever, it'd be reloaded. So, but just as FYI, okay, in case like you had some issue, right, you might need to run a Damien reload. But yeah, boom, right there we go. So as we can see, this is now up and running, right? SMB is working, and it should work whenever we restart the container. This will automatically boot up. Okay, cool. Now we are on to the next part. I am dying of sickness, guys. I am sorry. But here we go. So now we are going into the Nvidia section of this LXC container, right? You're doing all of this just to get DaVinci Resolve to run in an LXC container. Maybe I may very well actually separate this to get like so that this isn't too long for just people that might already have the container up and running. That's what I'm gonna do. This is going to be broken up. I'm glad you guys helped convince me to actually separate this from the Resolve part. Oh, you know what? No, because we do actually need the rest of the files. Never mind. This is actually staying in there. Anyway, now let's go ahead and let's talk about some Nvidia goodness over here. Okay. So we are going to need to get Nvidia SMI working. Now, if you remember from the LXC mount points, right? Nvidia SMI, right, is already there and working. That's cool. That's nice. Like I said, we only have three graphics or GPUs that we use. Can I open this up? Jesus Christ. All right. So if you remember, right? So we got, you know, the Nvidia SMI thing works naturally because we had mounted the stuff directly in the bin file, the bin folder on the container. But those rest of those Nvidia files are not going to be naturally found. So we got to do something a little extra for that. Now, if you remember correctly, let me see if I even still have, I do not. All right, because I know it makes sense because I never actually hit enter for that because it was just for show. I just didn't want to have to try to go back through the mount entry. So let me just grab the mount entry for the container that we had used. So because it'd make, you know, it'd be more helpful if I show that, right? So if you remember, right, one of those mount entries that we did was, you know, for those Nvidia files that we manually copied, right, from my whole system to a special folder, and then we mounted that folder into here, user lib64 Nvidia, right? So remember, that was the mount point. So now what we need to do is we need to get that, you know, that folder naturally, I guess, like, you know, seen by the rest of the system for where it thinks it's supposed to be at, right? I'm sorry that explanation was kind of botched, but like that's like probably the lowest level way I can kind of explain it to you, okay? So what we're going to do now is we are going to do this, right? We're going to print F, right? You could also done like sudo T, right? But what we're going to do is that we're essentially going to add, you know, that directory into this configuration file that we basically make, and which is going to be inside this directory. And then after we do that, then we're going to do sudo ld config, which, you know, makes those changes, you know, take effect. And then that's it, right? So cool. So you're just going to have to, up until this point right here, unfortunately, you're going to have to take my word for it that we're good and this works. So obviously you just want to make sure, okay, that the directory that you actually mounted it to based off of your mount point is where you, you had set, you had actually set it at. All right. So just make sure that, you know, you made your changes based off of that, and this should work without an issue. Right. So if anything doesn't work, you probably don't have it mounted the way you should have. So, all right. So now let us go ahead and get to the installation. So now this is going back into our Docker days. OK, so here we go. Right. So we're going to sudo app install. Right. These things here, these are needed for DaVinci Resolve up to yeah, I mean technically there's technically stuff to here, but like it's really here. As you see, I did do OpenCL dev. The regular OpenCL might work for you. You could try it, but I never got that to work. I was able to get it to work with this, but even with this, there's still an extra thing we're going to need to do later, just FYI. But you know, this, right, the Mesa utils and client info. Well, first off, the Mesa utils was just like for some debugging stuff that I needed. But the client info is to make sure that the OpenCL, that's how we're going to confirm that the OpenCL works. Pulse audio and pulse audio utils, as well as the POV control thing. That's all for getting audio to work on the system. So we did need that. You don't need VLC, but of course, you know, it'd be really helpful so that you can confirm like, hey, the video we made actually works right then and there. Or we need to test to see if sound is working by playing an MP3 file. PCI utils is also a debugging thing. You know, you don't need it if you don't want to add it. I would most certainly install it in case you have issues that you might need to debug later. So cool. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's see what it says is already installed here. Oh cool, so it already came with pulse utils, right? Like I said, this is from the Docker thing, so I'll just, like, you know, kind of more or less leave that be for the time being. Maybe get rid of that out of my thing later on, but it's okay. So we're gonna go ahead and say yes, and I say it's going to install, so we'll be back when that is done. All right, after that finish, so now what we're going to do is, now here was an interesting thing that was unique to LXC, right? So you have this thing, this Coreutils package, okay? Now you have Coreutils package, and then you have a Coreutils from uutils package that's going to conflict with Coreutils. This confliction isn't known until you try to install DaVinci Resolve in this era, because one of the things that'll happen is that if you try to continue from here to try and install DaVinci Resolve, when it tells you that a certain package is missing, it never actually tells you what the package is, and that Man, let me tell you, that was a crazy experience for me to try to figure out. And then once I did, it turns out it was this stupid, like secret package confliction that was just like kind of stupid. So what we're going to do is we are going to purge, right? We're going to say yes to allow remove essentials, because like Coreutils from Utils is apparently like a base package, is considered an essential. So we need to purge it. We need to get it out of our system. So we're going to remove it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to reinstall regular Coreutils. And then after that, then we're going to run #-r. All right. So let's go ahead and let's do that. Right. You're going to see there's a lot of warnings and stuff. And that's just because, we remove, what can I just show? Yeah. Right. Right, because it's considered a protected package, but like it had to go. It had to go because it was conflicting. All right, so this is gonna just so it's gonna take a few a minute at best. But now that it's done, now we are good here. So now we're gonna go ahead and we are going to now jump into remote desktop and try to install DaVinci Resolve. So first thing I'm going to do is, for the love of goodness, please tell me there is a way that I can get a little bit of a bigger display than that. 1920. I don't know about making it full screen, but let's try that and see if we're, if this is better. And gosh, you know what? Full screen is gonna. Oh my gosh, bro. I hope the rest of the desktop isn't like this. Otherwise, we're going to be in for such a great ride. All right, so let's see what happens. And my God, is it tiny? Okay, I figured it out. Oh man, that actually didn't take me quite as long as I thought it was going to. All right, so first thing, what you're going to want to do is, obviously this is going to be, use case on your particular display or whatever, however you're guiding. So first and foremost, right, the remote desktop. So the remote desktop application, that display setting slider thing that I was messing with, right, that only going to dictate the size of the window itself, right? So not necessarily the actual desktop. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to application. There's actually a couple of places. It's not as simple as Windows with the Windows scale slider and its desktop settings. So there's going to be a few places you're going to need to go to. So you want to go to application settings, right? And then you want to click on appearance, right? So this is the appearance right here. This is going to handle all of the text, text fonts. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to change the DPI and set it to what you're comfortable with. I had set it to 150. This looks good enough to me. After that, you are going to then want to go back here into settings, and then you are going to want to go to panels. So you'll click on this, and you have two panels. This top thing here is panel 1. This bottom here is panel 2. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to click on each one, and you're going to change the row size so that you make this entire bar as big as you want it to be. And panel 2, which is probably the one you're really gonna you're gonna really especially want, you're gonna set it to what you think is a nice size for you. Cool, that's all done, right? And then the last thing you're gonna do is, if you right click here and then you do desktop settings, right, you'll get this. And then for desktop icons, right, then you can change the icon size to like whatever is comfortable to you, right? This is what I kind of just slapped together last minute as far as stuff until like it looked good enough to me. So that's what that is. All right, cool. So now we're getting into, finally the main course of our journey here, which is going to be getting DaVinci Resolve installed onto this LXC container. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is, right, we're going to need to copy that install file. Now, here's the thing. That was primarily the reason why we mounted the SMB share, right? You could totally, okay, you could have totally mounted, a local directory on the host machine into the container, which is what we'll do later. But right now, I just wanted to get this kind of up and running. So right now we're just going to stick with just the SMB. I mean, either way, it's the same exact way. You make the container mount, right, and then you're just going to navigate to that folder. It just it'd be wherever you place that mount point at, right? So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go here into my SMB share, which is where I had that file anyway. And I am going to go ahead and copy that file to here. So cool. So, you know, it's copying. It's going to take, you know, it'll take like about a minute. Once that is done, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into the terminal, and we'll go ahead and get that up and running now while I'm at it. So first thing I'm going to do then is we're going to navigate to the desktop. And what we're going to do is, like I said, if you're coming from the Docker video, you already know, yes, we still got to do that nice fun stuff with editing some stuff out of it. So we're going to go ahead and I see that it's finished copying. Oh, by the way, you know that the fuse thing works. If I double click on this, as you can see, God, that is tiny. As you can see, we get the message, same message we would have got if we ran the actual .app run file, and it says, hey, these packages are missing, which is the reason why we still got to do the thing that we do, just like in the Docker video. So let me go ahead and paste this. Excuse me here. Come paste. All right, cool. All right. So here we go. Right. So just like before, we are going to take that DaVinci Resolve file. Okay. And then we're going to extract it. Okay. When we extract it, then we are going to then navigate into the folder, because it's going to be a squash FS root folder. And then we are going to run the sed command, and we're going to use the sed command to remove, because I think in my last one, I think I had you guys just use the whatever the text editor is on the UI, and just go find those lines and remove them. We're just going to do sed, so because we're already here, we might as well. One of the rare instances where I'm like, okay, we'll just use the terminal instead of just using the UI. But, you know, we're going to remove those lines, because as you saw when it popped up, I mean, what you would have hoped you saw, because it was just so tiny. You know, we're going to remove those problematic lines out of that app.run file. So let's go ahead and we'll do this. So it is going to extract. This shouldn't take too long. And then after that, then we are going to run it. Now, one of the nice things, unlike the Docker container, right, which didn't have sudo, so it didn't have that PK, that PK thing or whatever, is that now we can actually get a little bit closer to how, like, I guess Blackmagic says you should install DaVinci Resolve, which is not by using not using sudo, whereas in a Docker container we just didn't have a choice, we needed to use sudo. So you're going to see that in a second. But it is unfortunate that we still have to do like some of the other stuff as far as cutting corners in order to get it to actually work. So we're going to come back when this is actually done. Okay, it finished. So now what we're going to do is we are going to now run that .app run file, right? Because remember, it already ran the sed command to remove those problematic lines. So it is, and what do you mean it is not there? Goddamn caps. .app run. All right, so now this should be, and goodness gracious, this is tiny. I will maybe write into the video description on getting applications to get a little bit bigger than this. I heard that there is a way, because I think it requires you to do like some force, I don't know, a line and like some configuration to kind of force like the rendering. But I'm gonna have to like kind of practice with that for a bit and just make sure that it doesn't break something else, because we're going to get into later why, like, you know, some fixes for some things certainly break fixes for other things. So we're going to go ahead and blast on through it. Godly, this is tiny. I am sorry, guys, but we're gonna go ahead and install. Now, if you remember, like in the Docker one, like I said, this would be the part where it would stop and say there's some PK rec problem. But like I said, we don't have that issue with the LXC containers since we have sudo and whatnot, because this is actually able to ask us for our credentials. All right, so we're going to go ahead. We'll come back to when this is done, because we actually do have a few other things that we have to do in order to get this running. I also just want to point out to you guys, so I'm using DaVinci Resolve right? But that's just because like I don't want to sit there and blow through having to like just activate too many times, because I'm probably gonna have to like bring down this container and then like make it again from scratch just to make sure that something else works without without causing impact before I include it in the description. But everything that we're doing, setting this up, will work exactly the same for Studio. All right, because that's how I got to work on the other container. It's the exact same thing. The only difference is just going to be put it in your product key. All right, as you can see, it just finished and it made the little the little icon. But we still have a few more things we have to do in order to get this working. I know it's crazy. It's crazy, but hey, when you're living on the edge like this, like this is what it takes. And did I did just somehow freeze it. Okay, cool. So now let me go ahead and paste this. Right. So now, just like in the Docker one, right, we are going to need to remove some of those files, right? You can try and run Resolve by itself now at this point to see if maybe you don't have to do this anymore. Resolve shouldn't work. It shouldn't come up. It shouldn't even even tell you that it didn't work. And that's going to be because of these files. So as you see, we're going to navigate to where Resolve was installed in its libs folder. We're going to make another folder called disabled libraries, where we then move all these files that have these names in it out of that directory into this. And then after that, there's going to be we gotta make a what I can best describe as an alias command for running Resolve. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Docker video, you know that there is 2 environmental variables we need in order for Resolve to actually function properly, right? At this point, Resolve, if you try to run Resolve will come up, but the display portion will work in that like you'll see everything will come up and stuff, but the actual little workspace window, the preview window, like when you put your edits, your materials on your timeline, and then you're actually looking at the little window thing to see what that actually is looking like, that part will never work, right? Everything else actually will work. Even when you render the project, like the project will come out just fine. It's just if you was actually going to try and do editing on this server machine, that would be impossible, because you can't actually see what it is you're editing, unless you're a wizard, right? And you're able to visualize without actually looking at the live rendering display what your stuff is looking like. So what we have to do is we cannot set the environment variable across this machine, okay? Because there's a few ways you could have done it, right? You could do it as an LXC configuration, right, where you set the variable, although that that tends to be inconsistent, because like apparently like the environmental variables like are like handed down from like PID 1 and then all its like children's or whatever the hell that means, I don't know, but like which I think is like root and then like some other stuff. But I was like sitting there looking through that, and that didn't seem like it was good. And then of course you can do it as like a regular environment, like any other Linux installation. We're not going to do the environment variable because it then messes up your desktop UI. Okay, so XFCE software thing, right? If you set that environment variable, you can try and see if you get it to work, or you might have some workaround. Like I said, again, for people that's using like a different UI and stuff, you're kind of on your own on that, on like the configuration. If you set the environment variable and then some ish doesn't work, I can tell you that you set that environment variable, this terminal, right? This UI bar and all of this stuff will not work. It'll constantly break us up, and then you have to like sit there and manually restart it and like do this workaround stuff. And I was like, bro, this is just too much, when we could just set the environment variable manually for DaVinci Resolve when we're running DaVinci Resolve. All right, so now this is what you do. If you're familiar with aliases, right, where like you can like almost kind of like make your own commands, right? They'll just be like other commands with like flags or whatever. It's like kind of sort of similar to that, but obviously a little different. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we are going to tee into our our local bin, this right here, right? We're going to call it Resolve Nvidia, right? You can name this whatever it is you want to, okay? This is just a name that's going to contain, the commands that execute when you call this name, okay? Like I said, it's exactly like I want to say I guess you should consider it an alias, but like I don't know if that's the proper name, so don't shoot me, okay? But as you can see, we're going to create this name, right? And it's going to contain these commands, okay? Oh yeah, then of course you got the bash thing, right? I want to say this is commented out, but I don't know. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to export these environmental variables. Like I say, you coming from the other video, you know what these environmental variables are for, right? That's so DaVinci Resolve actually works properly. Okay. Then we will actually call the DaVinci Resolve application. And then that's it, right? Then we end the file, right? And then of course, just for proper sake, we make sure that the little program thing we technically just made, right, is executable, right? So chmod. So let's go ahead and do that. And silly me, I've had gotten this worked before. I don't know why it didn't work now, but apparently spaces and tabs are a problem when you're dealing with the ELFs. So make sure you certainly remove those like so, and then this time then it should work, all right? Okay, yeah, see, now it works. So just an FYI, okay? Didn't we do something earlier and it worked just fine? I don't know. It's just might be just eternal foolishness, right? But now we are almost done. So now the last thing we need is we're going to copy the name, right? This name that we created, okay? And, just for, convenience sake, we're going to edit now the icon launcher to just call that command, okay? Resolve.nvidia. All right, and again, right, what this will do is this will this will make it run the resolve program with these environmental variables, with these variables set the way they are in order to get it to work. So now here we are, guys. That's it. We are just about done. So now let's go ahead and moment of truth. Let's go ahead. Of course, this is our first time, so we're going to mark this as secure and launch because this is what we created. Mark as secure and launch. And boom. And yes, it is very, very, very tiny. So it looks like we are going to have to figure out that thing with the UI. Okay. So I'm going to, at least so just for this moment right here, let me just kind of show you guys and, prove that it works. And then we're going to go into the application UI scaling thing. I don't know if maybe DaVinci itself has something for it, but yeah, this is like, for sure, this is definitely like unworkable. So let me start. Let me start with trying to get this working along with some sound to see if the sound is working, because if the sound doesn't work, there is going to be some extra stuff we have to do at this point. But you should do this first just to confirm that it is indeed working. Yeah, that is tiny. Good God. Does DaVinci Resolve even have a skin? I don't even know if DaVinci Resolve really even has a scaling thing like that. At least I've never seen it. So yeah, we'll come back to that. But as you can see, and of course, the regular DaVinci Resolve only lets you use one GPU, but you clearly see that it can see my 3 without a problem. All right, but we're going to go ahead. Let's jump into our edit real quick. Going to effects. Like I said, I know this is like looking like kind of crazy, but like I said, immediately we know that this is going to work when I sit there and go ahead and add like a solid color thing. This is what I like to use to test. Double click this, let me get like a blue or something. Oh yeah, like I don't know why it does this, where like it doesn't let me just like change it when I just hit OK. I gotta like select like one of these first, and then from there, then it lets me change it. Don't ask me why. You just saw it, I saw it. I don't know why things like act like that, but it's fine, right? Let me now get some music here. Something. Yeah, let's actually play this, right? Because we're only gonna play like a quick thing of it. And then I am going to go ahead and come on, just because I mean this helps like kind of show that it is indeed working. Like I said, we're using this primarily for rendering, not like doing hard edits. So all right, let me hit delete. Okay, let's like hit play and see. And as we can see, we do not hear anything. Okay, cool, right? But you know, you do see that it does show up, so that's nice. In fact, what I also am gonna want to do is let me just get like a second block here, and I'm gonna just change this color to like, I don't know, green or whatever, right? And then we'll go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and cut that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save this now. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we are going to get sound working, right? Because apparently it doesn't work. So let me just go ahead and save this project real quick. All right, so we are now at the final part here, which is just sound, because for every reason sound is not working. So what we're going to do is, this is going to be fun, is we are going to first and foremost, right, we are going to do a app repository for Universe, right? Universe, we're going to need to, basically like enable that. Then we'll go ahead and update, package listing. And then after that, then we are going to install the Pipewire Pulse, these packages. I needed all of these installed in order to get the god darn thing to actually work. So let's go ahead and hit enter. Now the thing is that you after you do this, I mean, we'll check to see if it works. If not, we may have to close the RDP session and then go back into it. I don't remember if it just like immediately worked or not, but if not, then that's just what we had to do. As a matter of fact, I think I can just I'm pretty sure I could actually probably just yeah, see, that's what I thought. Not coming out. All right, so let's go ahead and close this. Okay, actually I forgot one more major part, right? I'm only here just because I already messed it up. Not messed it up like anything crazy, but like I'll explain in a second, I guess, right? So all right, so we enabled that repository Universe, right? And then we had installed those files. Okay. After that, right, you need to go ahead and then you're going to need to shut down the container because you're going to need to restart it. So, you can either do that in the UI, however you want, right? Because, it's just actually for your credentials, right? And then it'll shut down, or you could just do the hard thing from, the actual LXC settings and stuff, right? But make sure that, after you had installed, I know this is because this is going to be different for what you was just looking at, because I had installed it and thought I could just restart the XRDP service. And for whatever reason, now the XRDP doesn't want to let me log back in, which I've had that issue before and I haven't figured it out. But if you just restart the container, then it'll work just fine, which is what I'm about to do. So install these files, right? Install these softwares, right? After that, bring the container down, which you're going to watch me do right now. So I'm going to go ahead and, we could just restart it, really. And then go ahead and, let me make sure the IP address is still the same. You can probably just hit connect. Oh yeah, so the IP address was still the same. Yeah, one of the things I really like about this is just how fast it is, for sure. All right, now that we are in or back in, right? So let's go ahead and I'm gonna go back to my little folder there and try to play that audio file one more time now and see if the sound works. So let's go ahead and yeah, there we go. See? All right. All right, so it worked. And so, just to make absolutely sure, right, we're going to go back and open up DaVinci Resolve. I am going to, we'll make sure that the workspace is working as it should, right? As far as like, obviously we got the visuals working, because if the visuals wasn't working, we would have saw that because the color box little effect thing wouldn't have been doing its thing. So we know that those environmental variables work. We confirmed that audio now works on the actual RDP session, right? Because you're going to need that. Let me open up temp. I don't know why it doesn't do the icon thing. Sometimes it does, sometimes it don't. I don't know. Maybe that's just because it didn't work at the time. But, let me go ahead and go here. Let's just play this and see. Yeah, good. That is loud. All right, cool. Now, last thing I'm just going to do is I'm just going to do a quick test. This is the hard part because the regular DaVinci Resolve, right, doesn't really have good access to much apparently, and I don't feel like messing with VLCs like codec support in order to get like some of this stuff working. So I think what did I use? I think I just used was it MKV or was it AVI? Was it AVI? Like I really don't even remember which one it was. I think it was QuickTime actually. I think it was QuickTime, and I think I just used MPEG. Like I said, I just need a quick test, nothing crazy. Oh yeah, and then of course, like if you're here, then you're already familiar with DaVinci Resolve, so like you should know like how to set up the preferences and whatnot. I'm just gonna make a quick test video, not really messing with anything else, right? Because I said I just want to show you guys that the render thing does work. Like you see, that was quick and easy, cool little render. Now let's go ahead and go to that video. And let's, I'm pretty sure I could probably just double click and it'll just okay. Yeah. See, there we go. It works. All right. So now, very last thing we're just going to figure out, which I'm going to pause this until I do, is going to be the UI resolution, because good God Almighty is this tiny. I mean, it works for me. Like, I'm used to actually using stuff this small, but I'm sure it's going to bother a lot of you guys. So let me go ahead now and try to see if I can figure out how to get the application to like render properly. All right. I did kind of figure it out. This is going to be just strictly for this application. Okay. Not anything else. So it turns out DaVinci Resolve does actually have a little thing in it for it. I had came across something about like putting an entry into like some config file, but like you had to manually specify the DPI you're going to use, and I don't know, this just felt like pretty gross to me. So when I realized that Resolve actually does have a thing for its UI, I was like, bro, we're just gonna just use that. Like I said, I only use, if I'm using Linux for any other application, there's a problem. I need to just use my Windows machine. But yeah, as you can see, it's a little bit better, right? Sort of. Jesus Christ, why is it hold on, let me go like that. Okay, yeah, there we go. I personally never used the cut screen, so I don't, it just looked weird to me. But what you're going to go do is go ahead to preferences. You're going to jump to user, and in the UI settings, right? This is where you want to be, right? You're going to go ahead and you're going to change the UI display, right? It was at a 100. I changed it to 150. 150 is like good enough for me. Maybe you might look better at 200%. But yeah, just set it to 150. You do have to restart the application after you do that, but then after that, then you're good. So there you go. So that's it, guys. All right. So we set up an entire LXC Ubuntu container, right? The most involved thing we have done yet compared to the Docker container. Okay. We got the SMB working because that's my preferred method of getting these files on and off. Right now, I will tell you, just from personal experience, like I said, I haven't tried yet rendering to an SMB share yet. I just remember, if you remember, like in my other video, or at least in my Docker container, how I did say that, trying to render directly to an SMB share is a bit unstable. For Docker, right? Well, because we couldn't even get the natural SMB like to even be like working inside a Docker container. We had to actually mount an SMB folder from the host into that Docker container. So, as a pseudo connection thing, and like that was just like all kinds of trouble for us. Yeah, so like, we definitely want to do that, right? I haven't tested it with the LXC container since it is an actual legit SMB now, or SMB thing, like implementation running in the container. It might actually work naturally, so I'll give that a shot. But other than that, you're free to use like whatever else mount thing you want to do in that regard. But like I say, the SMB thing is how we do it. That's how we prefer. So we got that on there. RDP desktop, right? We did that. And then after that, we did some finagling when it came to Nvidia, right, to get the Nvidia files on here. And once all of that was all said and done, then we installed DaVinci Resolve, right? Almost exactly like we do in the regular Docker containers. We installed that. We did a few more things just to get it to work with the environmental variable thing, and boom, right, you got it running. Like I said, this setup is the exact same thing for Studio. Okay. I might even still throw Studio's name in this video, right? Because originally I did this for Studio. I just didn't want to have to go through the hassle of like doing my reactivation, because I still want to do my updated Docker video, because the Docker one, I'm sure some people are still going to want to use that. And I want to show there's a slightly easier way if you're using Docker now, for getting that to work. So, and you know, like I said, I might activate or I might like do some stuff. So that's why I just was going to just stick with just the regular Resolve right now. Right. But like I said, exact same setup for Studio, should be good. And that's it, guys. That's it. Like we're done. Took us quite a bit of time, but that's mostly just because of the LXC container, literally building and setting up the Ubuntu OS from scratch. Right. So we're here, we're done. We got everything we need. If something doesn't work for you, definitely throw it in the comment section so I can, you know, try to learn more about it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope this was helpful to the rare few special individuals that have found themselves here, that really traverse into this realm that we are in, where we do these very exotic stuff. All right, we're in the exotic realm. If you're here, you are an exotic person with like with the way you think, right? Because you're doing stuff that nobody else really does that we do. Okay, so kudos to you for actually watching this video all the way through. Extra kudos if you do leave a comment, you know, letting me know if this helped, any issues or stuff like that. Like I said, it's a little bit rough because, you know, some things just, yeah, it is what it is, right? And I'm sick. So, you know, we'll take it one step at a time. I'll be there to help you guys if there's any issues, or try my best. Can't make no promises. But with that being said, I hope this was helpful, and you guys take care.